My wife screamed across the dining room, her face twisted with rage I'd never seen before. "Apologize to my brother or get out of my house." 14 pairs of eyes locked onto me, forks frozen mid-air, wine glasses suspended in trembling hands. Her brother Brandon sat there with that smirk I'd come to hate over the past 6 years. The same smirk he'd worn when he called me a failure in front of everyone, when he'd mocked my career, when he'd suggested my wife could have done better. Everyone expected me to cave, to apologize, to beg. But I didn't. I stood up slowly, walked over to Brandon, looked him straight in the eyes, and spoke one sentence that made the entire room fall silent. And 20 minutes later, their perfect family image collapsed so completely that 3 marriages ended that night, including mine. My name is William Grayson. I'm 38 years old, and until that Saturday evening in October, I thought I had a decent marriage. Not perfect, but solid enough. My wife Lauren and I had been together for 8 years, married for 6. We lived in a comfortable suburban house in Riverside, had decent jobs, no kids yet, but we'd been talking about it. I worked as an aerospace engineer at a mid-sized firm, pulling in about $140,000 a year. Good money, stable career, nothing flashy but respectable work that I genuinely enjoyed. Lauren worked in marketing for a boutique agency downtown, making about $75,000. Between us, we were doing well. Better than most couples our age. We had savings, investments, took nice vacations. From the outside, we probably looked like we had it all figured out. But if you've been married for any length of time, you know that what people see from the outside rarely matches what's happening behind closed doors. And in our case, the problem had a name: Brandon Mitchell, Lauren's older brother. Brandon was 42, tall, with that Ken doll good looks that made people assume he was successful before he even opened his mouth. He ran a real estate development company that his father-in-law had essentially handed him. Brandon liked to present himself as a self-made man, but everyone who knew the real story understood he'd married into money and position. His wife Diane came from old money, the kind of family that had country club memberships going back 3 generations. From day one of my relationship with Lauren, Brandon had made it clear he didn't think I was good enough for his sister. Never said it directly at first, just little comments here and there. "Aerospace engineering, huh? That's steady work, I guess." Or, "Lauren, you sure you don't want to date someone with a little more ambition?" Always delivered with a smile, always followed by, "Just kidding, man," when he saw my reaction. But over the years, the comments got sharper, more pointed. And Lauren, instead of defending me, would just laugh it off. "That's just Brandon being Brandon," she'd say. "He doesn't mean anything by it." The dinner that changed. Everything was supposed to be a celebration. Lauren's parents, Robert and Michelle, were renewing their vows after 40 years of marriage. Big family gathering at their house, catered meal, the whole production. Lauren's younger sister Amanda was there with her husband Kyle. Brandon and Diane, of course. Lauren's aunt and uncle, a few cousins. 14 people total, all dressed up, all pretending to be one big happy family. I knew it was going to be rough when Brandon pulled up in his new Tesla and immediately started talking about how he'd paid cash for it. Couldn't even fit all the cash in the briefcase, he joked, though nobody was sure if he was actually joking. Had to use 2 bags. But when you close a deal like I just closed, you treat yourself right. Before we even got to subscribe, comment, and like this video. Your engagement helps this channel grow and brings more stories like this to people who need to hear them. Drop a comment below about a time when someone underestimated you. I read every single one. Dinner started pleasant enough. Lauren's mother had outdone herself with the decorations, white roses and candles everywhere, soft music playing. Her father gave a touching speech about 40 years of marriage, about partnership and commitment. We all raised our glasses. Everything was picture perfect. Then came the main course, and with it, Brandon's need to be the center of attention. "So, William," Brandon said loudly enough for the whole table to hear. "Still working on those, what do you call them, rocket parts?" "Satellite components," I corrected calmly. "For communication satellites." Right, Brandon said, cutting into his steak. "Sounds thrilling. How's the pay treating you these days? Still in the low 6 figures?" The table went quiet. Everyone knew where this was going. They'd seen Brandon do this before. "I do fine," I said simply, not taking the bait. Fine, Brandon repeated, like the word tasted funny in his mouth. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Lauren, don't you ever want more than fine? Don't you want great? Exceptional? Lauren shifted uncomfortably in her chair but said nothing. Brandon, his wife Diane said quietly, maybe we should— No, I'm just saying, Brandon continued, warming to his subject. Look at what I've been able to provide for Diane. The house in the hills, the cars, the vacations to Europe twice a year. That's what a man should be able to give his wife. Not just fine, not just adequate. I felt my jaw tightening but kept my voice level. Different people value different things, Brandon. Not everyone measures success by the size of their house. Of course not, Brandon said with that condescending smile. Some people measure it by the size of their ambition, or in your case, the lack of it. Brandon, Lauren's father Robert finally spoke up. That's enough. Dad, I'm just being honest, Brandon said, holding up his hands in mock innocence. Someone has to. Tell him. William's a nice guy, sure, but nice guys finish last. Lauren deserves someone who's going to really take care of her, not someone who's content to just coast along in a middling career. The word middling hit me like a slap. I'd worked my ass off to get where I was. 4 years of undergraduate engineering, 3 years of graduate school, countless 60-hour weeks to prove myself in an incredibly competitive field. I held patents. My work was literally orbiting the Earth right now, helping people communicate across continents. And this trust fund baby who'd never earned anything on his own was calling my career middling. You know what, Brandon? I said, setting down my fork carefully. I think you've made your point. Have I, though? Brandon leaned back in his chair, enjoying himself now. The whole table was watching. Because from where I'm sitting, you don't seem to be getting it. My sister could have married anyone. She's beautiful, smart, successful in her own right. And she chose you. Someone who's just fine. Just adequate. Just middling. Brandon, stop it, Lauren said, but her voice was weak, uncertain. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, sis, Brandon continued. At family gatherings, when we talk about what everyone's up to, we talk about my latest development project. Amanda's husband, Kyle, just made partner at his law firm. Even the cousins are doing interesting things. And then we get to William, and it's like, yeah, he's still doing that satellite thing. Nothing new, nothing exciting, just the same old fine. I looked at Lauren, waiting for her to defend me, to tell her brother he was out of line, to remind him that I was her husband and deserved respect. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes dropped to her plate. That's when I knew. I'd lost her somewhere along the way, and I'd been too busy working, too busy trying to be enough to notice. Actually, Brandon, I said, standing up slowly, I think there's something everyone should know. The room went silent. Brandon's smirk widened, thinking I was about to make a scene he could mock me for later. The reason you've been able to close all those big development deals, I continued calmly, is because your father-in-law has been funneling money from his pension fund investments into your projects. I know this because I handle the aerospace contracts for the same pension fund. I've seen the documentation. Brandon's face went white. Diane's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. That's a lie, Brandon said, but his voice cracked. It's not, I said simply. Your development company is technically profitable on paper, but only because you're getting loans at rates that don't exist in the real market. Loans backed by pension fund money that's supposed to be in secure investments, not propping up your commercial real estate ventures. I've been documenting it for months, trying to decide what to do about it. Robert, Lauren's father, stood up abruptly. Is this true? Diane was staring at her husband with growing horror. Brandon? Tell me it's not true. Who cares how I get the money? Brandon said, his composure cracking. The developments are successful. Everyone makes money in the end. Except the retirees who are counting on that pension fund being there when they need it, I said. Except the people whose life savings are being used as your personal bank. Lauren grabbed my arm. William, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, I said, looking at her. Telling the truth. Your brother's been calling me a failure, calling my career middling, when the whole time he's been committing fraud, and you've been letting him. The dinner exploded after that. Diane was screaming at Brandon, demanding to know what other lies he'd told her. Robert was on his phone, presumably calling someone about the pension fund situation. Michelle was crying. Amanda and Kyle were trying to calm everyone down while also looking horrified by the revelation. And Lauren was staring at me like I was a stranger. "You humiliated my family," she said quietly, her voice shaking. "Your brother humiliated me for years," I replied. "You let him. This entire family let him." "That's not the same thing," Lauren said. "Brandon was just joking around. You just destroyed his marriage, his reputation, everything." I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw something I'd been refusing to see for a long time. She wasn't upset because her brother was a fraud. She was upset because I'd exposed it. Because in her mind, protecting the family image was more important than protecting her husband's dignity. "Apologize to Brandon," Lauren said, her voice rising. "Apologize right now for making those accusations." "They're not accusations," I said. "They're facts, and I'm not apologizing." "Then get out," Lauren said, her face flushed with anger. "If you can't apologize to my brother, get out of my house." The room went silent again. Everyone was staring at us. "Your house?" I said quietly. "The house we bought together? The house I've been paying the majority of the mortgage on for 6 years?" "Our house," Lauren corrected. "And I'm telling you to leave if you can't apologize." I looked around the table one more time. At these people who'd watched Brandon tear me down for years and said nothing. At the family that valued image over integrity. At my wife, who was choosing her brother over her husband even now. "I'll pack my things tomorrow," I said. "You can have the house. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce." Lauren's face went pale. "Divorce? William, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "You meant exactly what you said. You just didn't think I'd actually leave." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. Drove to a hotel, checked in, and sat on the bed staring at the wall for about 3 hours, trying to process what had just happened. My marriage was over. 8 years, gone. Not because of some dramatic betrayal, but because I'd finally stood up for myself. The next morning I went back to the house while Lauren was at her parents' place, probably being consoled and told I was the villain in this story. I packed my clothes, my personal items, my important documents. Left everything else. The furniture, the decorations, all the stuff we'd accumulated together. I didn't want any of it. Each piece was a reminder of a life I'd been living wrong. I rented a small apartment across town, the kind of place that's functional but impersonal. Bare walls, basic furniture, nothing that required any emotional investment. It was exactly what I needed. The fallout from that dinner was spectacular. Within a week, Diane had filed for divorce from Brandon. Turned out the pension fund issue was even worse than I'd thought. Brandon hadn't just been getting sweetheart loans, he'd been actively siphoning money through shell companies. When the investigation started, it uncovered years of financial manipulation. Brandon's development company collapsed within a month. His father-in-law faced criminal charges. The whole thing made the local business news, complete with mugshots and everything. The golden boy of the family, exposed as a fraud. But here's what really surprised me. About 2 weeks after I moved out, Kyle, Amanda's husband, called me. "William," he said, "I need to tell you something. I've been wanting to tell someone for years, but I was too afraid of what it would do to the family." "What is it?" I asked. "Brandon's been doing this for years, not just the pension fund thing. He's been manipulating everyone in this family his whole life. Lying, exaggerating his success, taking credit for other people's work. I've seen him do it dozens of times, but every time I tried to say something, the family would close ranks around him. They'd tell me I was jealous, or that I didn't understand business, or that I should be supportive." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because you're the first person who ever stood up to him," Kyle said. "And I wanted you to know that not everyone in this family thought you were the problem. Some of us saw exactly what was happening. We were just too weak to do anything about it." That conversation stayed with me. It wasn't just about Brandon. It was about an entire family system that had enabled his behavior for decades. And Lauren had been raised in that system, had learned that protecting the family image was more important than telling the truth. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Lauren tried to get the house, the savings, everything. Said I'd destroyed her family and owed her compensation. Her lawyer even tried to argue that my revelation at the dinner constituted some kind of emotional abuse. But I had a good lawyer too, and more importantly, I had documentation of everything. The mortgage, payments I'd made, the larger share of bills I'd covered, the fact that Lauren had spent thousands on her brother's investments over the years without telling me. When everything was laid out in court, it became clear that I'd been carrying the financial weight of our marriage, while Lauren and her family had been treating me like a walking ATM who should be grateful for the privilege. We split everything 50-50, which meant I walked away with more than half of what I'd put in. But I didn't care. I just wanted it over. The really interesting part came about 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I ran into Michelle, Lauren's mother, at a grocery store. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked older, tired, like she'd aged 5 years in 6 months. "William," she said quietly when she saw me, "can we talk for a minute?" We stood there in the produce section, surrounded by people picking out apples and arguing about whether the tomatoes were fresh enough, and Michelle told me something I'd never expected to hear. "You were right," she said. "About Brandon. About all of it. Robert and we knew something was wrong for years, but we didn't want to see it. We raised him to believe he was special, that rules didn't apply to him the same way they applied to other people, and we let it destroy him." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you deserved better," Michelle said, her eyes welling up. "From all of us, but especially from Lauren. She was so scared of disappointing us, of not living up to what we expected, that she forgot to be a partner to you, and by the time she realized what she'd lost, it was too late." "How is Lauren?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "Alone," Michelle said simply. "She moved back in with us for a while, but it didn't work. Too many memories, too much damage. She's living in a small apartment now, working long hours, not dating anyone. I think she's trying to figure out who she is without us telling her." I felt a twinge of something. Not regret exactly, but sadness for what could have been if we'd both been different people. "I hope she figures it out," I said, and I meant it. "William," Michelle said as I started to walk away, "I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. For what Brandon did to you. For what we all did by allowing it. You deserved a family that stood by you, and we failed you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and walked away. That conversation gave me a kind of closure I didn't even know I needed. Here's what I learned from that whole experience. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who damage you the worst, not through dramatic betrayals, but through small failures repeated over and over. Lauren didn't have an affair. She didn't steal from me. She didn't abuse me. She just failed to stand up for me when it mattered most. And that failure, multiplied across hundreds of family dinners and gatherings and conversations, slowly eroded our marriage until there was nothing left to save. I also learned that family loyalty is complicated. The Mitchell family closed ranks around Brandon for years because that's what families are supposed to do, protect their own. But somewhere along the way, they forgot that protection shouldn't mean enabling bad behavior. Real love, real loyalty, means holding people accountable when they're wrong. It means having difficult conversations. It means sometimes choosing truth over comfort. Today, I'm doing better than I was. I got a promotion at work, ironically enough. My boss told me I seemed more focused, more confident. "Whatever you changed in your personal life," he said, "it's working." I started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. Met a woman named Sarah who's a high school physics teacher. She's brilliant, funny, and when I told her the story of that dinner, you know what she said? She said Brandon sounded like an insecure little boy who never grew up, and she was sorry I'd wasted 8 years on someone who couldn't appreciate what she had. Sarah makes about $65,000 a year, which by Brandon's standards would make her even more of a failure than me. But she's doing work that matters, shaping young minds, inspiring the next generation of scientists and engineers. And she thinks my job is fascinating. Actually asks me questions about my projects, wants to understand the technical details. It's such a simple thing, but after years of my career being dismissed as middling, having someone genuinely interested in my work feels revolutionary. I still think about Lauren sometimes. Wonder if she ever thinks about that dinner, about the moment everything fell apart. Wonder if she wishes she'd made different choices. But mostly, I'm just grateful I finally stood up for myself. Grateful I walked away from a situation that was slowly killing my spirit. Brandon's facing federal charges now. The pension fund investigation uncovered so much fraud that he'll probably spend the next decade in prison. His father-in-law took a plea deal and got 5 years. Diane moved to another state with their kids, changed her name, tried to start over away from the scandal. And me? I'm sitting in my small apartment, which I've slowly turned into a home. Added some artwork, bought better furniture, made it mine. It's not big or impressive. Brandon would probably call it middling. But it's honest, it's earned, and it's enough. Because here's the final thing I learned. Enough is actually a beautiful word when you really think about it. Enough means you've met your needs. Enough means you're not constantly chasing more, more, more. Enough means you can be content with what you have while still working toward what you want. I was always enough. My career was always enough. My income was always enough. The problem was never me. The problem was being surrounded by people who'd convinced themselves that enough would never be acceptable, that you had to be exceptional or you were nothing. That dinner destroyed my marriage, exposed a criminal conspiracy, and fractured a family. But it also freed me from a life I was never meant to live. Sometimes destruction is the first step toward building something better. Sometimes you have to burn down the old life completely before you can start fresh. If you're in a relationship where you constantly feel like you're not enough, where your partner lets others disrespect you, where family loyalty means tolerating abuse, I want you to hear this. You are enough. Your career is enough. Your income is enough. Your life is enough. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve a place in your story. Stand up. Walk away if you need to. Choose yourself. It's terrifying, I won't lie. That night, I walked out of the Mitchell family house. I had no idea what came next. No plan, no backup, just the knowledge that I couldn't stay where I wasn't valued. But looking back now, leaving that dinner was the best decision I ever made. Not just because of what I walked away from, but because of what I walked toward. A life where I don't have to apologize for being exactly who I am. A life where enough is celebrated, not criticized. A life that's mine, built on my terms, with people who actually appreciate me. The room fell silent when I spoke that one sentence at dinner. But my life has been anything but silent since then. It's been full of growth, change, hard lessons, and ultimately, peace. The kind of peace you can only find when you stop trying to meet other people's impossible standards and start living by your own values. So no, I never apologized to Brandon, and I never will. Some people don't deserve your apology. Some people deserve exactly what they get. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is refuse to apologize for telling the truth, no matter who it offends. That's my story. The dinner that changed everything. The marriage that ended. The life that began. I don't regret any of it anymore. I'm finally enough, exactly as I am. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experience standing up for yourself. And remember, you are enough. You've always been enough. Anyone who can't see that is the one with the problem, not you.